Evelyn Harper had never imagined that life could change so quickly. Only a few months earlier, she had lived a quiet and steady life in a small town where everyone knew everyone. She had a little house with a garden she kept with care, a familiar walking path to the bakery, and a husband, Thomas, who had always been her anchor. Thomas had not been loud or exciting, but he had been steady, someone who made the world feel safe. When he passed away suddenly, it felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. She tried to stay in the house alone for a short while, but every corner reminded her of him. Every morning, she reached for a coffee cup he used to hold. Every evening, she waited for footsteps that would never come again. After weeks of trying to adjust, she finally accepted that staying in the same place was too painful. She needed a new beginning. Her distant cousin, Martha, had written to her months before, offering a spare room out west if she ever needed it. At the time, Evelyn had thanked her, and then tucked the letter away, never imagining she would consider the offer. But now she felt she had no choice. She gathered her courage, sold a few belongings, and bought a train ticket with hopes of a fresh start. The train ride was long, quiet, and filled with more thinking than she wanted. Rolling fields, forests, and small towns passed by as she sat with her hands folded in her lap. Sometimes she tried to read, but her thoughts drifted. Other times she looked out the window, imagining her new life something calmer, maybe simpler. She imagined a warm welcome at the station, her cousin waving from afar, and a sense of relief washing over her. She knew starting over wouldn't be easy, but she hoped she might find a little peace. When the train finally slowed, the whistle echoing over the empty fields, Evelyn felt her nerves tighten. She reached for her small brown suitcase, the only luggage she carried, and stepped down onto the wooden platform of the remote prairie station. The wind was cooler than she expected, brushing the edge of her coat. A wide, open sky stretched above her, so big it made her feel small. She pulled her sweater tighter and looked around. A few passengers stepped off with her. Some were greeted warmly by family members who hurried forward to meet them. Others walked straight toward the dusty road leading to town. Evelyn looked for someone who might be searching for her, a woman waving, perhaps, or someone holding a sign, but no one approached. No warm smile, no familiar face. She scanned the platform again, slower this time, as though the person she sought might appear if she just waited long enough. But the more she looked, the clearer it became. No one had come for her. A small ache settled in her chest. She tried not to feel embarrassed. Maybe her cousin had been delayed. Maybe something unexpected had come up. It happened. She took a deep breath and stepped to the side, so she wouldn't block other passengers. When the station clerk walked past her, she lifted her hand slightly and gave a polite smile. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I'm waiting for someone. Do you know if there's been any message left for me? My cousin was supposed to meet me here." The clerk barely glanced at her. He was a short, hurried man who seemed more focused on checking the luggage carts than helping travelers. "No messages," he said quickly. Not unkind, but not warm either. "People come late sometimes. If she's coming, she'll find you." Then he walked off toward the office, leaving Evelyn standing alone once again. The train behind her blew a final whistle, and the wheels clacked loudly as it began to move. The platform shook gently under her feet. Evelyn watched as the cars rolled away, taking the last of the noise and comfort with them. Soon, the train was only a line of smoke disappearing into the horizon, and silence settled in its place. She waited another few minutes, but nothing changed. The other passengers had already dispersed, hugging loved ones, loading luggage into wagons, and laughing as they made their way home. The space around her grew emptier and colder. She brushed a strand of hair from her face and tried to calm her growing worry. A woman sweeping near the entrance of the station glanced at her. Not unkind, but with a look that suggested Evelyn didn't belong there. Evelyn wondered what she must look like, tired, maybe anxious, a small suitcase at her side and no one to greet her. She straightened her posture, hoping to appear a little more confident. After 20 minutes passed with still no sign of her cousin, Evelyn tried to think of what to do next. She remembered reading in a travel guide that small towns usually had a boarding house or a small inn. Perhaps she could walk into town and rent a room for the night. Her cousin might simply be late, and they could sort everything out in the morning. With this tiny bit of hope, she lifted her suitcase and began walking toward the road. The dust rose lightly under her shoes as she moved. The town looked small, just a few buildings clustered together, with quiet streets stretching into the distance. It would take only 10 or 15 minutes to reach the main area. As she walked, she passed a few local residents. Some nodded politely, but others simply looked at her with curiosity, as though trying to guess who she was and why she had arrived alone. She tried to smile at those who met her eyes, but most looked away quickly. She reminded herself that small towns sometimes hesitated around strangers. It wasn't personal. When she reached the main street, she found a small shop with a sign that read, General Mercantile. She stepped inside, hoping the shopkeeper might know where she could find a room. A bell above the door chimed softly. The man behind the counter looked up and offered a polite nod. "Afternoon," he said. "Good afternoon," Evelyn replied with a gentle smile. "I'm new here. I was hoping you could tell me if there's a boarding house nearby. I need a place to stay for the night." The man scratched his chin. "There's Mrs. Whitfield's place 2 streets over. She rents out rooms sometimes, if she's got space." He gave her the directions, which she repeated to be sure she understood. "Thank you," she said. Before she turned to leave, the man asked, "You waiting on someone? Folks don't usually stop here, unless they've got a reason." "Yes," Evelyn said softly. "My cousin was supposed to meet me at the station, but she didn't come." The man's eyebrows lifted in mild surprise. "Sorry to hear that. Hope it's just a mix-up." "So do I," Evelyn replied quietly. She followed the directions to the boarding house, a 2-story home with a tidy porch. She stepped up and knocked gently on the door. After a moment, a woman in her 50s opened it, her expression curious but not unfriendly. "Yes?" she asked. "Hello," Evelyn said. "I'm looking for a room, just for a night or 2 if possible." The woman hesitated. She looked Evelyn up and down, not rudely, but with the careful eye of someone who had learned to be cautious. "Do you have a reference? Someone in town who can speak for you?" Evelyn's heart sank. "No," she said honestly. "I'm new here." The woman shook her head slowly. "I'm sorry, dear. I've had trouble before renting to people I don't know. I can't do it again." Her voice was gentle, but her refusal was firm. "Oh," Evelyn whispered. "I understand." The door closed softly, leaving her on the porch with the fading daylight pressing against her shoulders. For a moment, she just stood there, unsure of what to do. She didn't want to wander the streets like someone lost. She didn't want to go back to the station either, where the emptiness felt even larger. Finally, she made her way back toward the station, moving slowly, her suitcase feeling heavier with each step. She reached the same wooden bench near the building and sat down. The sun was starting to dip lower, casting long shadows across the platform. The air was cooler now, and she folded her hands in her lap to keep them warm. She tried not to cry. She had told herself she would be strong on this trip, but everything was harder than she expected. She didn't know where her cousin was. She didn't know where she would stay. She felt out of place, like a guest in a world that didn't know what to do with her. A few people walked past the bench, but none stopped to speak. Some gave her quick glances full of curiosity, others full of indifference. She felt more alone than she had in months. Just as she lowered her head and wondered whether she should simply take the next train back home, she heard a distant sound. At first it was faint, like a soft thudding far away. Then it grew louder, steady, rhythmic, drawing closer along the dirt road leading to the station. Hoofbeats! Evelyn lifted her head, squinting toward the horizon where the road curved. A small cloud of dust rose behind a fast-approaching horse. The silhouette of a rider came into view, tall in the saddle, moving with purpose. She sat up straighter, unsure whether she should be frightened or hopeful. The horse slowed as it neared the station, and the rider guided it toward her. His clothes were dusty from travel, his posture strong, his hat shading his eyes. He stopped right in front of her bench. Evelyn blinked in surprise. The cowboy looked down at her calmly, and in a steady voice, He said the words that would change everything. "I've been waiting for you." Evelyn sat frozen on the bench, unsure whether the cowboy was truly speaking to her. For a moment, she wondered if he had mistaken her for someone else. The words he spoke had been calm, certain, almost gentle, yet they surprised her enough that she simply blinked at him without answering. The cowboy waited patiently, his hands resting lightly on the reins. He didn't seem bothered by the fading daylight, or the cool breeze drifting across the open station. There was a quiet confidence about him, the kind that made him appear steady even in silence. His horse, a chestnut with a soft white stripe down its nose, shifted its weight but stayed still. Evelyn finally gathered enough courage to speak. "I'm sorry. Were you talking to me?" "Yes, ma'am," the cowboy replied with a small nod. "I meant you." She looked around the platform, half expecting to find someone else he might be addressing. But there was no one, just the empty benches, the quiet building, and the soft rustle of wind through the dry grass. "But you said you were waiting for me," she said, trying to understand. "How could you be waiting for me? We've never met." The cowboy lowered his head politely. "My name is Cole Maddox," he said. "I believe you were headed this way because of your cousin, Martha Turner." The mention of Martha startled her. "Yes," Evelyn said slowly. "But how did you know that?" Cole sighed softly, as though he had expected the question. "Your cousin wasn't able to come for you," he explained. "She sent word yesterday morning, asking if I could help instead. Said she didn't want you arriving with no one to meet you." Evelyn's eyebrows drew together. "She sent word? But no one told me." Cole looked toward the station office. "Messages don't always get delivered on time here. Sometimes they get misplaced or forgotten. It's not ideal, but it happens in small towns." Evelyn felt a familiar mix of relief and disappointment. It was good to know her cousin hadn't simply abandoned her, but she wished someone had passed along the message. It would have spared her the long, lonely hours of waiting and the uncomfortable walk into town. "Is Martha all right?" she asked. "She's fine," Cole said kindly. "Just dealing with a bit of trouble at home. Nothing serious, just work piling up, and too much to handle all at once. She hoped you'd understand." Evelyn nodded, the knot in her stomach easing slightly. "I do understand. She's been good to offer me a place at all. I know she has her own responsibilities." Cole shifted gently in the saddle. "She asked me to make sure you got to her place safely. But I'm sorry I arrived late. I came by earlier, but the train hadn't come yet. I rode home for a bit, then came back as fast as I could." Evelyn gave a small, surprised smile. "You came twice?" "I said I'd help," he replied simply, as though that alone explained his effort. She looked down at her hands, unsure what to do next. The thought of riding with a stranger made her nervous. But the thought of staying alone at the station made her even more uneasy. The sky was getting darker, the breeze colder, and the town quieter by the minute. Cole seemed to understand her hesitation. "If you'd rather wait for Martha herself, I can stay with you until she comes. But she did hope you'd let me take you to her place. It's a good hour's ride from here, but I promise I'll get you there safely." His tone was respectful, without any pressure. He didn't rush her or act impatient. He simply offered. Evelyn studied him carefully. His face was lined from years in the sun, but his eyes were gentle. There was sincerity in his voice, the kind she rarely doubted in people. He did not look like someone who made promises lightly. "Still," she asked, "are you sure she really sent you?" Cole smiled faintly. "Martha's handwriting is hard to mistake. She wrote my name right on the note. And she knows I pass through this area often, so she figured I'd be the closest person to help." The wind grew cooler, brushing against the fabric of her coat. She felt her shoulders tense slightly. The shadows were stretching long across the platform. She could already imagine how lonely it would be to sit there once the sun fully disappeared. Taking a small breath, she stood up. "If it's truly not any trouble, I would appreciate the help." It's no trouble at all," Cole replied, his voice calm and warm. He stepped down from the horse, landing with a quiet thud. and walked toward her. He didn't reach for her belongings right away, giving her space to feel comfortable. Only when she nodded did he lean down and lift her suitcase with ease. "Light bag," he remarked lightly. "I didn't bring much," she said softly. "Just what I need." Cole gave her an understanding nod. Sometimes that's the best way to travel. He tied her suitcase securely to the horse's saddle. Then he turned to her again. "Have you ridden before?" "Once or twice," she admitted, "but it's been a long time." "I'll help you," he said, leading the horse to a small patch of flat ground. He held out his hand, steady and patient. Evelyn placed her hand in his. His grip was firm but gentle. And with his support, she managed to climb onto the horse. She felt unsure at first, balancing herself carefully, holding the saddle horn to steady her breath. Cole climbed up behind her, not close enough to crowd her, but close enough to guide the reins without difficulty. She felt the warmth of the horse beneath her, and heard the soft exhale of its breath. It was a strangely comforting sound. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered. With a light touch of his heels, Cole guided the horse forward. They moved slowly at first, letting her adjust to the motion. The station grew smaller behind them as they followed the quiet road leading toward open fields. The town passed by with only a few lights glowing in windows. A couple of people looked their way, but most were already indoors, settling for the evening. Evelyn watched the little houses drift by, wondering what her life might have been like if she had grown up in such a place. After they left the town behind, the ride grew peaceful. The sky turned soft, shades of gold, pink, and lavender, as the sun dipped lower. The air smelled of dry grass and warm earth. Evelyn found herself slowly relaxing, her hands no longer trembling against the saddle horn. Cole rode steadily, guiding the horse with gentle movements. After a few minutes, he spoke, his voice soft enough not to startle her. "You traveled a long way." "Yes," she replied, "longer than I expected it to feel." "Leaving home isn't easy," he said. "No, it isn't." Cole didn't pry. He didn't ask her about her past or why she was moving. He simply gave her space to speak if she wished. After a moment of quiet, Evelyn found herself saying, "I lost my husband earlier this year. It's been difficult." "I'm sorry," Cole said gently. "I can't imagine how hard that was." "He was a good man," she said, her voice softening. "Life feels different without him." Cole nodded. "Sometimes life shifts in ways we never planned. But you're strong for making this journey, even if it doesn't feel like it." Evelyn didn't respond right away. She looked toward the horizon, where the last of the sunset was fading. "I just hope I did the right thing," she whispered. "I think you did," Cole answered quietly. "Sometimes a new place can give us room to breathe again." They rode in silence for a while, the rhythmic sound of the horse's hooves creating a steady beat on the ground. It was comforting in its own way, like a calm heartbeat guiding her forward. As they approached a small hill, Cole slowed the horse. "We're about halfway," he said. "You doing all right?" "Yes," she said honestly. "Better than I thought." "Good," he said with a small smile she couldn't see but could hear in his voice. The stars began to appear, first one, then another, then a soft scattering. The sky grew deeper and darker, like velvet unfolding above them. Evelyn found herself mesmerized by how clear the night was here, so far from crowded streets and noisy towns. When they reached a small stretch of open land, the air grew cooler, and she shivered slightly. Cole noticed immediately. "Wind picks up in this area," he said. "Here." He draped a light blanket around her shoulders. The warmth was instant, and she felt touched by the small gesture. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You're welcome." As they continued, Evelyn realized something surprising. She no longer felt lost. She no longer felt like someone wandering without direction. Instead, she felt guided carefully, kindly, and without any pressure. The road curved gently toward a cluster of trees, and Cole slowed the horse again. "Just beyond those trees," he said, pointing, "is Martha's place. You'll see the lantern she keeps on the porch." Evelyn squinted in the distance. Sure enough, a soft glow flickered among the trees, small, warm, and welcoming. Her heart softened with relief. "Thank goodness," she murmured. I didn't know what I would have done tonight. You're safe now, Cole said gently. As the house grew closer, the warm light shone brighter, almost as if waiting just for her. And for the first time that day, Evelyn felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time: hope. The soft glow of the porch lantern came into clearer view as Cole guided the horse through the last stretch of the narrow path. The house was modest but warm-looking, with wooden steps leading up to a porch lined with potted plants. Even from a distance, Evelyn could tell that someone had tried hard to make the home feel welcoming. After the long day she'd had, the little sight of light and life felt comforting. Cole slowed the horse to a gentle stop. We're here, he said softly. Evelyn breathed in deeply, taking in the steady warmth spreading through her chest. She didn't realize until that moment just how tense she had been the entire ride. The journey, the confusion at the station, the loneliness earlier, it all felt as though it belonged to another day now. Cole dismounted first, landing quietly on the soft earth. He reached up with his hands ready, waiting for her to step down. Evelyn hesitated for just a moment, less out of fear and more because she felt awkward climbing down from a horse after so many years. But she placed her hands in his, trusting his calm steadiness. With one secure motion, he helped her to the ground. Her feet touched the grass, and she let out a small breath. Thank you, she said, looking up at him with genuine gratitude. You did well, Cole said with a gentle smile. He untied her suitcase from the saddle and offered to carry it. But Evelyn insisted on holding the handle herself. She felt she should carry at least a little of her own weight after everything Cole had done. As they approached the porch, the door opened slightly, and a warm face peeked through. Martha Turner, Evelyn's cousin, stood in the doorway with a handkerchief in one hand, and worry etched across her features. Evelyn, she cried, stepping out quickly. Oh my goodness. I've been worried sick. Before Evelyn could respond, Martha rushed forward and wrapped her in a tight embrace. The familiar scent of lavender soap and fresh bread filled Evelyn's senses, and her eyes stung unexpectedly with tears. She hadn't realized how much she needed a familiar hug. Martha, she whispered, it's all right. I'm here now. Martha pulled back, brushing away a tear from her own cheek. I'm sorry. I couldn't come to the station myself. I had something come up at home. I sent Cole as soon as I could. No harm done, Evelyn said gently. I'm just grateful someone came for me. Martha nodded and turned to Cole. Thank you for bringing her. Happy to help, he said simply. Inside the house, warm lamplight softened the wooden walls. The living room smelled faintly of stew and fresh baking. A knitted throw blanket was draped neatly over the chair near the fireplace. Everything looked cared for, though Evelyn could tell Martha lived modestly. Sit down, please, Martha urged, guiding Evelyn to the sofa. You must be exhausted. I am, Evelyn admitted, though her voice held more relief than fatigue. Cole set her suitcase near the entryway and removed his hat politely. If there's anything else she needs, just send word, he said. Of course, Martha replied. And thank you again. Evelyn turned to him. Truly, Cole, thank you. You've been very kind. He gave a faint nod. I'm glad I was there. With that, he stepped outside, closing the door quietly behind him. Evelyn watched him go, feeling a strange sense of comfort, knowing he had been part of her journey. Martha returned to the sofa, easing herself down beside her cousin. I'm so sorry you had to arrive alone. When the message didn't get through, I feared you might have been waiting for hours. It was a confusing moment, Evelyn said gently. But I'm all right now. And Cole seemed trustworthy. Martha smiled knowingly. Cole Maddox is a good man. Quiet, steady, and always willing to help someone in need. You're lucky he was the one nearby. Do you know him well? Evelyn asked. Well enough, Martha replied. Most people around here respect him. He keeps mostly to himself, works hard on his ranch, and only speaks when he has something worth saying. But he's dependable. That's rare nowadays. Evelyn nodded thoughtfully, remembering how calmly and carefully he spoke, how patient he had been with her. After a warm meal and a long conversation, Martha led her upstairs to a small guest bedroom. The room was simple, just a bed, a small dresser, and a window overlooking the fields, but it was tidy, and clean sheets were laid out carefully. "It's not much," Martha said, "but it's yours for as long as you need." "It's more than enough," Evelyn said sincerely. She changed into a comfortable nightdress and lay down on the bed, feeling her muscles sink into the mattress. The events of the day replayed in her mind: the empty station, the unwelcoming town, the unexpected kindness of a cowboy who seemed to appear out of nowhere. The memory of riding under the stars felt almost unreal. She fell asleep to the comforting sounds of crickets outside her window. The next morning brought a fresh start. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, casting warm patterns across the floor. Evelyn felt a little lighter than she had in months. When she went downstairs, Martha was already up, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. "Sleep well?" Martha asked. "Better than I expected," Evelyn said with a grateful smile. After breakfast, Martha walked her through the small garden behind the house, pointing out the vegetable patch, the chicken coop, and the shed that needed some repairs. "Things keep me busy," Martha said with a tired laugh. "Sometimes too busy." "I can help," Evelyn offered immediately. "You're no burden," Martha assured her. "But I would appreciate the help." Later that afternoon, while watering the garden, Evelyn saw someone approaching on horseback. "Cole." Martha waved him in. "Cole, come sit for a while." He dismounted, tied his horse near the fence, and walked over with a calm smile. "Just stopping by to see if everything went all right last night," he said. "It did," Evelyn replied. "Thank you again." "I'm glad," Cole said softly. Martha handed him a glass of water. "You're always welcome here, Cole." As they sat under the shade of a tree, Cole turned slightly toward Evelyn. "Did you settle in okay?" They roughly ww. "Did you settle in okay?" "Yes," she said. "This place is peaceful." "Good," he replied. "Sometimes a quiet place can help clear the mind." Evelyn nodded. "That's what I'm hoping." There was a thoughtful silence between them. Not awkward, more like the kind of quiet shared by people who don't need to rush through words. After a few moments, Cole spoke again. "I didn't mention something yesterday," he said, his voice low but sincere. "Not because I meant to hide it, but because the moment didn't feel right." Evelyn's eyebrows lifted slightly in curiosity. "What is it?" "I knew your husband," Cole said quietly. "Not well, but well enough. He once helped me during a rough moment in my life. I never forgot it." Evelyn froze gently. "You knew Thomas?" "Yes," Cole answered. "We met years ago when he came west for business. I was going through a difficult time then, and he said a few words that changed things for me. He had a way of understanding people." Her eyes softened with memory. "He did. I didn't know he had passed." Cole added carefully. "When Martha mentioned you were coming, and that you were alone now, I felt it was right to help. It was the least I could do." Evelyn swallowed gently. She felt no sadness in hearing it, only a deep, warm kind of gratitude. "Thank you for telling me," she whispered. Cole nodded slightly. "Your husband helped me without asking for anything in return. I wanted to return even a small part of that kindness." For a long moment, Evelyn didn't speak. She simply looked at the quiet cowboy sitting beside her, feeling something shift in her heart, not a romantic feeling, not yet, but a sense of trust. Unexpected but welcome. As Cole prepared to leave, he lifted his hat respectfully. "If you ever need anything, just send word. I'm not far." Evelyn watched him ride away, the horse's gentle trot kicking up small clouds of dust. There was something reassuring about his departure, like he would come back if she called, but would never intrude if she didn't. Later that night, as Evelyn sat on the porch, she realized something important. She didn't feel alone. Not in this new town. Not in this new chapter of her life. She had lost much, but she was beginning to find something new: comfort, connection, and the kindness of people she barely knew. And somewhere out in the wide prairie, a cowboy who had quietly kept his promise continued his journey, unaware that his simple act of loyalty had begun to reshape Evelyn's life in ways neither of them yet understood. The days that followed moved gently. like pages turning in a quiet book. Evelyn settled into Martha's home with surprising ease. Each morning, sunlight poured through the bedroom window, warming the wooden floor and waking her with a sense of calm she hadn't felt in months. The rhythm of life here was slow but steady, feeding the chickens, tending the garden, sweeping the porch, and helping Martha with daily chores. The simplicity of the tasks gave her a purpose, something she had missed dearly. Martha was grateful for the help. "You've made my life easier already," she said one day as they folded laundry together. "I didn't realize how much I was falling behind." "I'm glad to help," Evelyn replied, smiling softly. "It feels good to be useful again." Though Evelyn was adjusting well, she found herself thinking about Cole now and then. She remembered how sure and calm he had been when he rode up at the station, how he guided the horse gently during their journey, how he spoke with a thoughtful honesty she rarely found in others. His quiet presence lingered in her mind in a way she hadn't expected. About a week after her arrival, Cole stopped by again. He didn't knock loudly or announce himself. He simply rode in slowly and greeted them with a polite nod. Martha welcomed him with warm familiarity, offering him a glass of lemonade. Evelyn joined them on the porch, wiping her hands on her apron after tending the small herb garden. "You're settling in well," Cole said, noticing the neat rows Evelyn had organized. "I'm trying," she said with a small laugh. "Though I still forget where Martha keeps half her kitchen tools." "That's normal," Martha chimed in from her rocking chair. "I've lived here for years and still misplace things." Cole chuckled lightly. There was something about his laughter, quiet, genuine, that made Evelyn feel at ease. As they sat talking, Evelyn realized she was no longer nervous around him. His presence felt familiar now, almost comforting. She listened as he and Martha spoke about local events, the weather, and ranch work. When Cole described repairing a fence or helping a neighbor with a stuck wagon, he spoke humbly, as if these were small things, but Evelyn sensed these acts revealed his character steady, dependable, and thoughtful. After finishing his lemonade, Cole prepared to leave. But before he mounted his horse, he turned to Evelyn. "I'll be in town next week for supplies," he said casually. "If you ever need anything from the general store, I can bring it." "That's kind of you," Evelyn replied. "I'll let you know if I do." He tipped his hat slightly and rode off. Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed naturally, sometimes at the market, sometimes when Cole rode by to check on Martha's fences, sometimes when he simply stopped to talk for a moment. Each conversation was simple yet meaningful, filled with easy smiles and quiet understanding. Evelyn found that she looked forward to these moments more than she cared to admit. Martha, always observant, noticed. One evening, as they washed dishes together, she said gently, "Cole has come by quite often." Evelyn paused, then smiled shyly. "He's been very helpful." "He's been more than helpful," Martha said with a twinkle in her eye. "I think he enjoys talking to you." Evelyn felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "It's just friendship," she said softly, unsure how to describe the feeling growing inside her. It wasn't love, not yet. It was quieter than that, like the first warmth of spring after a long winter, a gentle comfort that made her heart feel lighter. Days stretched into weeks, and the seasons slowly changed. The air grew cooler in the mornings. The leaves began to turn soft shades of gold, and the evenings grew longer. Evelyn's life took on a peaceful routine. She cooked meals with Martha, helped with the garden's last harvest, and even began writing letters to old friends, something she hadn't done since her husband's passing. One afternoon, Martha asked Evelyn to go into town with her to buy sewing supplies. They walked down the main street together, greeting neighbors who had finally warmed up to Evelyn after seeing she was kind and hardworking. The shop owners no longer looked at her with suspicion. Instead, they offered smiles and small conversations. Inside the general store, as Martha searched for fabric, Evelyn browsed the shelves. She was examining a jar of jam when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Didn't expect to see you here today." She turned around to find Cole standing there, leaning casually against the counter with a small bag of supplies in one hand. His smile was relaxed, warm, I came with Martha, Evelyn said. She needed yarn. I see, he replied. I'm just picking up a few things myself. They talked for a few minutes, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. Cole told her about a neighbor's new foal, and Evelyn shared how she and Martha had baked a pie that morning. Their words felt light, natural, as though they had known each other far longer than they actually had. Before they parted, Cole asked quietly, "Are you settling in all right?" "Truly?" Evelyn met his eyes. "Better than I expected. This place, it's good for me." Cole nodded slowly, as if relieved. "I'm glad." When they returned home, Martha teased her gently but kindly. "He came to talk to you," she whispered. "I could see it from the doorway." Evelyn laughed softly, shaking her head. "You imagine things." "Maybe," Martha said. "But I've been around long enough to recognize when two people enjoy each other's company." She gave Evelyn a meaningful smile before turning to organize her sewing supplies. As autumn deepened, Evelyn found herself growing more comfortable with her new life. She began helping Martha with bookkeeping for the small shop she managed. Using skills she had learned back home, she mended clothes, organized the pantry, and planted winter herbs. With every passing day, she felt more useful, more alive. One evening, as she stood outside watching the sun sink behind the hills, she heard hoofbeats approaching. She turned and saw Cole coming toward the house, the last light of day catching the edges of his hat and jacket. "Good evening," he said as he dismounted. "Good evening," she answered with a gentle smile. "What brings you here?" Cole looked at her with a sincerity that made her heart rise slightly. "I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed for the colder nights coming. The temperature drops quicker than people expect out here." "That's thoughtful of you," she said. He smiled softly. "Well, you've been here long enough to know I like to check in." They stood there for a moment, the quiet evening settling around them. The air carried a crispness that hinted winter was not far away. The porch lantern flickered gently, casting a warm glow on the steps. Cole cleared his throat lightly. "Evelyn, there's something I'd like to ask, if I may." She turned fully toward him, curious. "What is it?" "I know you've gone through a lot," he began slowly. "You've lost someone important, and you've had to start your life over. I don't want to make things harder or rush anything, but I've grown to appreciate your kindness and your strength. And I'd like to spend more time with you. Only if you feel comfortable." "Of course." Evelyn felt her breath catch softly. His words were gentle, sincere, and full of respect. She didn't feel pushed or pressured. She felt valued. "You've been very kind to me," she said quietly. "I'm grateful for everything you've done." "Then maybe," Cole said carefully, "we could go for a walk together sometime." "Just a walk, nothing more." Evelyn's lips lifted into a soft smile. "I'd like that." Cole's smile widened just slightly, the warmest she had seen from him yet. "Good. Let me know when you're ready." He stepped back, preparing to leave. "Take care, Evelyn." "I'll see you soon." "I'll be here," she replied. As he rode away, Evelyn felt something gentle blooming inside her. A feeling she thought she might never experience again after losing her husband. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was the beginning of hope, a new kind of hope that came from being seen, understood, and respected. Life did not magically become perfect. There were still quiet mornings when she missed Thomas deeply, moments when memories washed over her unexpectedly. But now those memories didn't feel as heavy. They lived peacefully alongside the new experiences she was creating. Weeks later, Evelyn would look back on that moment on the porch and realize it had marked the beginning of a new chapter, one she hadn't expected, but one she was finally ready to embrace. She had come to this town feeling lost, but now she was finding her place. She had been rejected and overlooked at the station, but kindness had found her anyway, delivered by a cowboy who kept his promise and waited for her when she needed it most. And as the seasons changed around her, Evelyn felt a truth settling softly in her heart. Sometimes life takes away what we know, only to lead us towards something gentle, steady, and unexpectedly beautiful. Something like a new beginning, something like a second chance, something like hope riding slowly across the horizon.